Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
If you're anything like us, there's a good chance you probably got your start with religion or church as a child, littered amongst pews of Sunday hats, barely working fans, and heat-swallowing suits. And who can forget the Holy Ghost session every first Sunday? Then, without further spiritual guidance and nutrition, journeying into adulthood with a fragmented feeling of never knowing why you attended church, who was this awesome, omniscient, all-watching, fear-inducing, merciful God, and does said God even exist? And why did so more than often this spirit often seem to elude us? Wagwan, are you there? And what's good? It's your boy G Ransom, and today we're opening up our alabaster boxes today to discuss the development of our spiritual journeys into adulthood, how we incorporated God into our daily life routines and the challenges we often face as newfound and longtime disciples. So be sure to tune in for your daily dose of culture and more right after we pay these tributes only on the world's most cultured podcast. And to get in tune with everything that's happening with us, our latest posts, our discussion posts, be sure to follow us on IG at Jerk Jollof Collard Pod. You can also reach out to us on Facebook. That'll probably get our gears working on developing our Facebook, because we're pretty bad on the social media front, the interactions, but we're getting there. And today I have with me my fellow warrior, my brother in arms, brother in bond, the only one that can make it today on this Juneteenth and Father's Day Sunday, D Black, D Ron himself.
Hey, what's good? What an intro.
Bro, they only get better. They only get better over time. But it's like working on an intro. I was like, when we were going over, you're hosting this season, so a lot of people are new to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we sat down and we went over the whole, like, my take on hosting and building an agenda. I was like, that topic statement is probably going to be the easiest thing. But when it comes to writing a description for an episode, it's kind of like, well, damn, sometimes you want to try to capture as much as you can about what happened, but it can be so hard sometimes. So like,
and we wonder, like, are y'all reading this?
Like to put it into it. So we work damn hard on these agendas. We work
damn hard to make this work. Are y'all reading this?
Y'all better be reading. Y'all better appreciate these intros and descriptions that we write.
Oh man, but yeah, we do it because we enjoy it, and we hope that we're imparting some kind of knowledge, smile, or doing something to help boost your day. So
facts, man. And different apart from that, like I mentioned, this is like we will record our episodes on the 19th, well, every Sunday, and release them on the Wednesday. So we usually do back-to-back episodes. So today, we're acknowledging the Juneteenth and Father's Day. I actually came back not too long ago from Weehawken.
Mm-hmm.
Took my dad out, and Kim, my dad, her father, her stepmother out to and my mom to over the Waterside. Shout out to the Waterside Restaurant and Catering, by the way. But
sounds delicious.
Yeah, apart from that, you saw the Instagram post, Mr. Juneteenth himself. I was over at Eventology in Middlesex. Shout out to Eventology and Francine out there hosting their Juneteenth pop-up, which was pretty lit. So shout out to our vendors. Show some love to y'all on Instagram, as always. Managed to get me this nice little Bob Marley rolling tray. So, I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh,
spicy.
One love.
Exactly. I'm about to show them hella love. I get that bad boy into action. Shout out to Truly Created Designs, by the way, for that dope rolling tray, man. But how about you? You had anything planned? Juneteenth, you did anything?
It's so funny. It's so, I'm like, I hope this doesn't sound terrible, but how do you celebrate Juneteenth?
Bro, easy.
I feel like and I don't want to say because I'm like, I'm Nigerian and use that as an excuse, but it is still relatively new official holiday. but it's always existed, But I mean, maybe because I'm from the North, like in Jersey, like it wasn't a big, it's sad to say, but it was only until I came to the South that it became like that I became so aware of it. So
Yeah.
like, how do you celebrate it?
You know, it's a crazy thing. Like every Juneteenth, I go to this march. It's like a walk to a burial ground over in Bergen County, and I'll get the address. I'll drop it in the description on this post. So basically, there's actually a burial ground in New Jersey where some of the last slaves were well, during slavery, some of the slaves were buried there. But then also, I think New Jersey, this one county, Bergen County, New Jersey, was one of the last counties to actually free slaves after like the Emancipation Proclamation. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was like, it wasn't until 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation that most slaves were freed. So there was actually this one Bergen County, New Jersey, where a lot of slaves were still left over even after, the Juneteenth awareness and the Juneteenth announcement that happened in 1865. There were still slaves in New Jersey around that time, and we actually go down to that burial ground and pour libations, throw some honors to the ancestors as well. So really lit, and it's in the morning too, which helps. But yeah, you're right. Like I think Juneteenth is like the July 4th for Black folk. You know what I mean? It's like our official Indian.
But we're not lighting
Independence Day.
fireworks, are we? We're not.
Shoot,
You know
we
what I
should.
mean? But the reason why I say, because I just don't want to be in the category of people that do it wrong. I mean, it's just crazy because I feel like every other couple of days you see like some company apologizing for doing Juneteenth wrong. Like they did a Juneteenth
The ice
carrot
cream.
cake and Juneteenth ice cream.
Yeah, the
You
red
know what I
velvet ice
mean?
cream.
It's just like I don't want to be in the category of people to do it wrong. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's going to be pretty hard for you because, I mean, you're a person of color. So it's a lot. I think you'd get a little bit more leeway. Like, you're not going to go out here and do some ratchetness. Like, I've seen a lot of festivals, a lot of like outdoor festivals, music, dancing, things like that. And apart from the ice creams that sounded just atrocious anyway, like that one red velvet, whatever flavor, I was like, oh, this sounds disgusting. Like, what does this have to do with Juneteenth? But yeah, it's definitely like, as you mentioned, like even a cash in opportunity for a lot of corporations to kind of really expand upon the entire Black movement. And it makes me wonder, like, how many Black people are actually getting anything or monetarily from these Juneteenth celebrations? Like, who's really behind them in a way? Like, I'm glad they're happening, but honestly, I think the best Juneteenth celebration I did, my first one of Kim's colleagues held a barbecue. And then during the barbecue, there were like Black trivia and Black facts throughout their backyard and things like that. And it was pretty lit. And I think there's no wrong way to do it, but unless it's like one of us.
Red velvet ice cream or
that part. Like, they love this. Let's make the fried chicken and watermelon flavor next.
Well, I'll say then, and obviously I shouldn't limit this to only June, but put a little bit more emphasis on it in June. I'll be trying to celebrate Juneteenth and in June itself, by focusing a little bit more on the history and really sitting down to get, a deeper understanding, maybe attend some seminars or something. Because if I have to ask that question, that's probably part of the problem too.
Nah, without a doubt. And I feel like it's another one of those things, especially when you're Black and corporate. It's like everybody's gonna come up to you and ask you. You're suddenly now the Juneteenth aficionado, right? You're like, well, are you coming in on Friday? I know Juneteenth.
Are you taking off today or tomorrow? I mean,
yeah, it's a Black man holiday. You ain't know.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Are you coming in? Everybody's looking.
Can't white people take off on Juneteenth?
I don't know. Can we take off on Yom Kippur? Like it's Yom Kippur, you ain't know. I'm Jewish, you ain't know.
Exactly.
Like, sure. I mean, you could trade a couple holidays if you like.
I mean, listen, I'm gonna try to claim one next year and see what happens. How about that?
Exactly. I'm surprised there's no like white nationalist holiday in the making right now. There probably is.
Gosh. Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, shout out to Eventology again and Lucky Stars for planning that, putting that together. If you haven't seen the post on IG, definitely was in the building emceeing. So shout out to everyone there, Francine, Eventology in Middlesex. But let's actually just chime in on something related to the topic. I'm not sure if you saw the YouTube links I dropped on the agenda, but there were these two instances of young men having near-death experiences and having a moment or a journey, spiritual journey, to where one young man, I think he was based out of Memphis, said he actually saw the devil and he went straight to hell and he died, first of all, in the hospital. I think it was a matter of drug overdose, but he was also, it seems like he was a part of that life where he was like probably selling and dealing and things like that, and drug use. And he was a very young man. I think he was like probably at least under 20, 21. And now he's basically built a platform based off his experience. Like he's trying to make everyone aware of his experience of going to heaven and going to hell first, before he was liberated by God, because he was told that it wasn't his time. And I think we've heard these stories like on and off throughout the years, where you have the, end of times, usually you have your end of times person where it's like, oh, the world's gonna end today. And you're just like, okay, yeah, whatever. I think there was even an instance or a couple years ago where it was supposed to be like this sign that the world was gonna end, and this guy had withdrew like all the money from his account, maxed out his credit cards.
Yeah. Wasn't that like Machiavelli or something like that related to?
It was like how something lined up, and I can't really recollect. And I hate doing this where I don't have the full details, but and I remember it being like a few years ago. But anyways, back to this. Yeah, so the young man died and he went to hell. And he said he saw the many different levels of hell. And the devil was like, and we'll drop a link as well to this actual breakdown, to this video. But he said the devil was a beautiful creature. Like you wouldn't expect the devil to look the way it did. Yeah, it wasn't human, it wasn't an animal, it was just beauty. And basically the devil was just walking throughout the many layers of hell. Then he saw people, banished to torment and things like that. He gave a really vivid description of it. And suddenly he was pulled from hell and returned back to earth, where he found himself in the hospital bed. And since then, he's made a journey into discipleship, and he's also using YouTube as a platform to help spread the word. So my first question is to you, like, do you believe any of this? You think this is true? Is this like the new wave? Because now that I searched him, I've seen so many more videos now of people that have died and gone to hell and heaven and come back to earth to tell the story. And I'm just
Google
like,
searches must be going crazy right now.
yeah, I'm like, do you think there's any truth to that? Is it cap, or do you think some people on earth have witnessed these things and are meant to deliver a message?
So, I feel like you can't believe in heaven and not believe in hell. You know what I mean? And I guess growing up in a Nigerian family, I mean, we're taught that, a lot of that, like Shango, demons and stuff like that, like that's very real, and even like curses and all that stuff, right? So, I mean, we've had those, I mean, like, at least growing up, I'm not gonna say I've ever witnessed anything or can attest to it like myself, but just from conversations with my family members and stuff like that, that stuff does happen. You know what I mean? So, is it possible? The problem with me now, I just feel like we're in a society where everybody does everything for the point of getting a click. You know what I mean? That they're willing to, I forgot, what was that dude, like Logan Paul, when he went through that forest in Japan where people do like ritualistic kind of like suicides and stuff. Like people will do anything to make you look at them. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard when to always kind of believe that, okay, there's no ulterior motive or that is genuine, when there's always an opportunity to be monetized, right? So that will always kind of lead me to some level of skepticism. So, but is it possible? Yeah, I think it could be very possible. But there's no way for me to, I feel like I don't have the skills needed to affirm or deny that this guy is legit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And to the point, monetization of religion has always been a thing, back to the Creflo dollars and those mega $1 million churches where the pastor has like a private jet and all that. And I'm not saying, if my thing is, if you have your own salary outside of the church, then yeah, you can feel free to spend your money on whatever you want to spend it on. But it's like at the same time, I think if you're using the tithes of your parishioners, I feel like anything from the church, if you get a salary or not, okay, yeah, you have that for yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
I see it where being a pastor is legit a paid job, like file your taxes and all that. But it's like at the same time, to see a pastor living this lavish lifestyle, or the idea of people doing things just for clicks, yeah, it's just the coming of age, right?
Yeah.
So
And it
basically,
really kind of makes it hard. It really dilutes like I guess from an optic perspective, like it really makes it hard to tell like who's genuine, who's not genuine, who's doing it for clicks. And the craziest part, that God could be really sending us signs. He could be sending legitimate signs, but because there's individuals diluting that, we can miss it because we're too busy being skeptical. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think like at the same time, it's out there, but it's up to us to make that decision ultimately, as far as what we want to believe and don't believe. Because I mean, so for instance, if you're going to call yourself a Christian and you do believe in the idea that there is a heaven and a hell, and so much as far as whose mouth that comes from, I feel like the truth should still be the truth, whether or not you accept it for what it is or accept it from who it's coming from. So it's kind of up to you how far you want to delve into it and whether or not you want to give up your dollars for it. But I mean, I guess a Christian cannot deny, or a Catholic, that there is a heaven and there's hell. There's a place where you ultimately end up going for eternity once you pass. And I guess even if the person's doing it for clicks, it doesn't take away from the message that is rooted into what religion that you're serving, or
that's true too. Yeah.
And if you allow that to change your view, then yeah, you got to really kind of question how strongly rooted am I into this, if one person making a video can change my entire perspective. So, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. And this, like, to me, it's just the how many times it's happening. Like, there's just another link I provided was another 25-year-old that had the same experience, and it's just like, wow,
But yeah, but I think the problem again, repetition doesn't necessarily antiquate that they're all legitimate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can still be, have high level of skepticism. And that's what I'm saying, that because we always have that part of our minds where we know that there is potential monetization here, there's someone becoming famous, there's always some kind of secular goal associated, it warps how we look at these things, like, is it real? Can it be real? Like, it's like, I think that will always kind of be the problem. So when there are true miracles, we may miss them.
Yeah, facts. And the gentleman's name was Joshua Deshun, as Deshun. Apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly, but if you'd like to go ahead and search him yourself, this was something that took place in 2021, so it's fairly new. So give that a go. Now that we went through our question of the day for the group, let's hit today's Rep Yours. And this episode's Rep Yours is dedicated to Heads and Sticks. That's Sticks with 2 X's, so STIXX, which is a family-owned takeout, home of the Nipsey breakfast sandwich and their signature fry bowls. So that basically, with Heads and Sticks, you can either get a head, which is a baked potato, or sticks, which is a basket of fries, and they'll be loaded with a combination of toppings and cheeses and meats and sausage. So I had the one called Jilly, where it was a cheesesteak inspired fry bowl. And actually, all these dishes are named after cultural icons or some of the most prolific players in the culture. So you even have like the Tupac sandwich, you have the Nipsey Hussle breakfast sandwich, obviously. You have the Jilly, which was like a cheesesteak with cheese sauce and onions and peppers on a bed of fries. And it's amazing. They're over here located in North Jersey at 1700 Stuyvesant Avenue, Union, New Jersey. You can go ahead and visit their website to order online at Heads and Sticks. That's HEAD and STIXX.com. You can follow them on Instagram at Facebook at Headsticks, HEADSSTIXX. I'll probably go here like once a week, I ain't gonna lie. And they are helping me in my summer gains right now.
Delicious.
So shout out to y'all, man. I love it. family owned, a lot of young people working in there doing their thing. And I love it. I love fries. So it definitely helps. So without further ado, let's chop today's episode, getting squared up with God. You already heard us delve into heaven and hell. So let's talk into what we actually believe in our denominations. So D, I'd like to start with you. What do you believe in and why? And how long have you kept these beliefs?
So I identify as Christian. I believe in God. I've always had these beliefs, I guess, but I was raised Pentecostal, which is a really specific form of Baptist. It falls under Catholicism though. But anyway, the only distinction kind of with Pentecostal is that they're more music based. They're kind of like praising and reaching God through, music. But yeah, I've always been this religion. That's how I was raised. And growing up in a Nigerian family, you're either going to be Muslim or you're going to be Christian, and those are the only two ways you can go.
I think Nigeria has a big Muslim population as well.
Yeah.
Apart from the Catholic, I think it's probably the most dominant religion in practice in Nigeria is probably Islam or Muslim, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be the person to know the distribution. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there is a large Islamic population there. So
yeah. And for me, it's the same. I'm of Christian experience. I believe that there is a God. He sent his only son to earth, and which he sacrificed to save us for our sins. There is a heaven and hell. There are commandments to live by. So I follow the entire Christian experience and Christian walk. Believe in God, and I believe in the fear of God. I believe in salvation, that we're all saved, but it's up to us to accept or ignore our salvation. Mm-hmm. So that's all up to you. And in turn, I've always, what's really got me into it was I've always had a fascination of kind of wanting to know how did things originate, how did things come to be, down from gods to human experience. Like why are things the way they are, and how did they get a start? And I think that's what ultimately led me into my walk with religion, because compared to where I am now to how I started, like being forced into church, mm-hmm. and basically spending an entire Sunday in church. It's just like,
Mom, why are you bringing me here?
Yeah, it didn't matter what church it would be, a Baptist church, Pentecostal church, a Catholic church, or Christian. It's like, yo, you going to all the churches today until you come back in the evening. And church in Jamaica, forget about it. You're there from and which is mainly Catholic. You're in there. Well, actually, Seventh-day Adventist and Catholic is the main two, I would say, in Jamaica. And you're in there.
I don't know. You don't got it. Nah, man. Nigerian church, bro.
Yeah. 8 a.m. till 9 p.m.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got evening studies, and you got Bible study. You got early Bible study. Then you got that morning session. Then you got that afternoon session. You're not gonna leave church. You know what I mean? So we got the food in the back. Have a little bit of food and get back to praising. That's
exactly
Nigerian churches, man.
And I would say I pretty much ran through them all. Like I've always had a fascination with God and having an understanding. And I always believed that there was a higher power essentially pulling the strings and guiding us into our walks and watching over us. And it really was up to us to accept him or her, or said God. But I didn't know what religion I wanted to be a part of. So I did journey into Rastafarianism. I did journey into Catholicism. Then I've gone to non-denominational churches, Baptist churches, other Christian-like churches. And it was just like being able to kind of taste everything. I journeyed into Hinduism at some points. And it was just like, I just try to play into everything. Trying to find myself and what brought my purpose on this earth and who should I attribute this purpose to? So I was thirsty in that regard.
So let me ask you a question then. Mm-hmm. As you've because I've never actually done that. I've never actually dabbled in, other religions, So as you've run that gambit? What made you decide? Like, what drew you to like say, okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be Christian?
I would say ultimately at the end of the day, it was really a matter of what I felt like I was able to gain access to, because to find Rastafarian churches is like, I felt like you really had to search. Like you really had to kind of get into these tight circles, because a lot of them tend to be location based. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, all right, am I really going to travel to New York and back every time I wanted to? Like, it may sound bad to say, but I do think access to these, to your religion or access to the facilities for fellowship play a big part. And it's like,
Because you
if you're
don't see it every
unable,
day. Yeah.
exactly, if you're unable to gain access to it, it's kind of like, all right, it does hinder you a bit.
Mm.
So it was just like, ultimately, there was like a plethora of Baptist churches around me that I know I could gain access to in non-denominational churches. So it really was just like, okay, I went to Rastafarianism thinking, all right, I'm gonna smoke weed, I'm gonna go here and read the Holy Pibby, you're gonna be chanting and all that. And it was just like, nah, bro, that's not what it's all completely about. And then being able to actually effectively continue that fellowship, I just felt like it was non-existent in New Jersey at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I said, you know what? Let me go back to what I started with as far as, the Christian experience, and really delve into that and really sit down and hone it as a part of me more. And some religions do kind of fall on the ethno-religious scale. Like for instance, I could imagine how difficult it would be for a person of color to suddenly become a Jew when,
Mm-hmm.
when it's just like, okay, not that you can't follow it, but it's just not that you can't journey into Judaism, but it's just that transition. Most people tend to get in by via marriage, where their partner follows Judaism. So by expectation, you marry into that, you also become like indoctrinated or gain your affiliation that way. So it
Yeah,
was just,
but then I guess my question is then, I mean, I think you bring up a really good point when you talk about proximity and access to that religion, to that faith. There are probably faiths that I've never heard of,
mhm,
but making a distinction on like which faith you believe, because it's not just something that I just kind of do, or it's something that I believe. So how much of that is being influenced by being brought up in a Christian home versus like, again, you kind of went the gambit and got some other exposure, but then you still landed Christian. You know what I mean? I've been exposed to Islamic um as well, like I have family members as well, but I still landed Christian. I don't know. I think it's just really interesting when you speak of proximity, because like I never thought of that actually having an impact on which faith someone believes.
yeah, fellowship is an integral part of any religion. Like you have to be amongst other people that believe in what you believe, in order to really grow in your religion. And that's why church attendance, I feel like, is always stressed and so important, because without that fellowship, how are you really growing with your
Hmm.
religion? So, and I know that can be the thing that really drives a lot of people away, because they're like, yeah, you mean I gotta wake up on Sunday? You mean you want me to give up time on my Wednesday afternoons and go to Bible study? And it's like, if you're at that stage, you really got to reevaluate and reassess, like, what purpose or what role does this play in your life?
Mm,
And in order to really gain a true understanding, yeah, you need that fellowship. So proximity was key for me.
mm.
And I think that'll actually tie into our next question, which we're going to discuss: is there a difference between spirituality and religion? Can one replace the other? And the reason why I brought this one up was because I think within like the last couple of years, there's been this kind of movement of spirituality in the sense of like worshiping crystals and
Mm.
keeping these kind of geostones and candles and incense. And one of the things I've always heard a lot of people that don't want to go to church say is, "Oh yeah, I'm religious. I'm spiritual though. I don't believe in going to church. I'm a spiritual type person. You know what I
Like, what
mean?"
does that mean?
Exactly. And they never stepped a foot in church, not even for 10 minutes, but yet they're these spiritual beings. So I wanted to ask you, is there a difference between the two, and can one replace the other?
Well, so religion is actually following, from my understanding, of the definition, following a faith, right? Being within a group of individuals, connected by a specific line of faith. Spirituality is kind of understanding that maybe there is a deeper sense of self or deeper sense of kind of like energy or something in the stratosphere and in space. I think that they kind of get tied in to each other because of the spiritual plane, right? But they're not necessarily one and the same, because people, like to your example, can say, yeah, I believe in this aura or this chi, or like all of that kind of ties into spirituality, right? Like everything has a deeper sense of essence or something of that nature. But that still doesn't mean that you have a definition of what that is, how you frame what that is, how you worship what that is, how you embrace what that is. And that's what religion does. It speaks to the context of, okay, this is what that deeper sense of spirit is. It's, the connection to, God our Father, that, it's not, I don't know. I feel like they can't be the same. It's like a square I love making this example. It's like a square and a rectangle because a rectangle, no, wait, a rectangle is a square, but a square is not a rectangle.
Yeah, nah, I feel you.
Do
And
you get what I'm saying?
yeah, I get what
my
you're
metaphor?
saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They look the same, but they aren't the same.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I would say to that, and shout out to Pastor Jason Mitchell. He's the pastor at my church, People's Missionaries Baptist Church out there in Newark. Shout out to him. He really helped me really refine and fine tune my talking points today, because I'm like, I'm going to be up here talking about my religion, my understanding, my beliefs. And the last thing I want to do is make this church look bad. So, but shout out to you, Jason. As far as religion, yeah, I agree. It's the belief in God or a God. So there's several different religions, and basically governed by a set of rules and practices and rituals that you're expected to uphold as a follower. And spirituality to me is just this belief that there's this divine being, presiding over us and guiding us and ruling over. And just the idea that there's something bigger than yourself is spirituality. But my take is that you need both essentially to follow, because think about it. If we did all of the practices within religion without any sense of spirituality, we'd just be going through the emotions, right? Because think about it. It takes a lot to pray and believe and, cry and profess to something that you've never seen before in your life. Like, imagine what it takes day to day to say that you believe in something and express your beliefs in something that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
So like really think of the way that you've never seen it, you've never touched it, it's never perhaps spoken to you the way that you and I can converse here on this platform, but yet it's speaking to us in this somewhat metaphysical sense. It's talking and touching us through song, through experiences, through nature. So yeah, in its core essence, that is to me spirituality, and they can't be replaced. I think you need one to really preside in the other, and vice versa. They work in tandem, so you can't really separate them. But there is bad spirituality and there are bad religions. So essentially being able to make sure you're subscribing to the right thing, I think is key when you're on this journey, and knowing, okay, within my religion, they don't believe. If you're Christian, you're not here burning incense and praying to crystals. You know what I mean? You're reading your Bible, you're fellowshipping, you're praying to God. So it's just like understanding what's required within your religion and making that a part of you. I feel it's essential, so you don't get caught up in this premonition of superstition and incense and all this other stuff, and you're just like, okay, wait, is this actually fulfilling something, or am I just filling up somebody's pocket here?
Yeah.
So
I think one thing you even speak to is just, even as as general civilians, our level of kind of understanding, is limited,
Mhm.
Even as believers, like as a believer myself, I'm not going to necessarily have a mastery of the scripture, to the level where I can make such distinctions between a miracle and and not, what I mean. So having a conversation with your minister, really kind of fellowshipping with other people that are growing as well, and then being mentored by someone who has more experience, will really kind of help you to kind of hone your eyes and look at the world a little bit differently from, I guess, look the world a little bit differently and get the understanding of when God is touching something, when is God is putting something in our lives, and when the devil is also trying to fight against us.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we just continue to miss it, and we need that leadership so that way we can become experienced and make those kind of inferences as well.
Yeah, and I think essentially the goal is to become leaders in our own right, because I know one of the things throughout discipleship is trying to foster a true understanding and mastery of the Bible. One of the tools in becoming a disciple or becoming a believer is reading your Bible daily and meditating on the word. And essentially it's is to become like to kind of get out of this stage of infancy and truly a mastering, because it's through the word and the scripture that you're going to find God. You know what I mean? And essentially, he avails himself to those who are willing to seek him.
Mm.
And in the same sense, you can go to a church and still have your own soul understandings and beliefs. Well, of course, they're going to be in line with the religion that you follow.
Mm-hmm.
So spirituality can be getting to that next level. And that's the reason why I even wanted to have this conversation, is to talk about how to really get to that next level. Like, stop going through the motions of it and just saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I came to church today, I'm good. But no, like actually making it a part of our daily lives. And speaking of which, let's talk about ways that spirituality or religion has impacted, our personal experiences and our personal development. And I would say, basically, I've been baptized for years. And as a child, you go through christening, you get baptized. But I feel like at the time I got baptized, I really didn't have a true understanding of
Mm-hmm.
God and what it was and what it meant to me. Like, I remember singing on my choir, and I actually had a lead in my choir, believe it or not, as
Ooh.
a kid.
Ooh. Killing them with the high notes.
Oh God. It was like, I remember I had one solo, and I think that was my last solo. It was like,
Not
nah,
killing them with the high.
he ain't ready yet. He ain't
Yeah,
ready yet.
ready.
But it wasn't until recently, like even in my mid 30s, and just to say it's never too late to find them, but that I recently went to I went to my church now, my current church home, People's Missionary, and I walked up one Saturday afternoon and I said, I want to become a member. I'm ready to essentially make this a part of my daily life. I want this to be the backbone of who I am as a person. I want people to be able to say, yo, Glenn, he was a true Christian. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and also give an example of what a good Christian is, because I feel talking to people our age or younger, they're quick to say that, oh, Christians are hypocrites. Christians,
Mm-hmm.
they talk about each other, they nasty, excuse me, they be sinning. All they do is talk about people. They tell you what you can and can't do. And going into it, I wanted to say, hey, yeah, of course, you have to make some adjustments. If you're coming from that kind of ratchet lifestyle, yeah, you'll find yourself making adjustments necessary
Mm-hmm.
to keep yourself clean. And I think that's an important part of it. Can't go out here doing crazy stuff on the weekends and try to come to church thinking you're sanctified and then going back out. No, it's about making that daily transition to develop yourself as an individual. And I know like one part of the Bible that speaks on this in particular is Matthew chapter 5. It's a chapter on the Beatitudes. And it basically goes through all the essential traits that a Christian should have, but also knowing that with this walk, you may be made a mockery of, you may be looked at
Mm-hmm.
differently, and people are going to, look at you differently and treat you differently sometimes. And there may be situations of, there's maybe these trials and adversity put against you, but an understanding that as a Christian, what it is that you need to do to overcome them, and keeping a open mind, and, being able to keep the peace, but not be someone that gets ran over. And I think that's one of the core things people having to know. So as far as like my daily lives and experiences, yeah, it makes me change the way that I talk. I know I don't want to be out here cursing and acting a fool. You know, it makes me look at the way that I deal with interactions. It makes me look at the way that I deal with people. And also, it also impacts the people that I essentially fellowship and hang with, because I feel like the more you start to go on this Christian journey, you're going to realize that you want people that can help you foster that experience, people of like mind. I think that's within any endeavor, right? Like if you want to be successful
definitely.
at something, it has
You
to be
like-minded
people
people.
of like mind. Exactly. So all those things play a part. And I think everyone's experience can be different, but as long as you're sticking to the scripture and to the toolkit and everything that you need to do as a follower, you'll realize that it all essentially plays a part in everything that you do. Like it really does challenge you to change or unprogram some of the things that you may have adopted from the world, but not from the world of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you speak on a really good point there, because I think the one part that really kind of instilled in me that was, as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, I have someone who's always going to watch my back and make sure that, because that's, God, he protects us, he watches over us. And, as long as I'm continuing to do the things I'm supposed to do to support my friends, my family, all those that I care about, living kind of, a righteous life, God's not going to let, bad things happen to us,
So let's get into the next one. And as far as like fostering a relationship, were there any experiences that you think may have, as far as, well, do you feel satisfied at where you are right now? Or do you feel as if you've made any transition from maybe back in the day as a child to now as an adult? Do you feel things are just the same? But if not, were there any exact experiences that you felt may have helped or hurt your experience, with this journey and building a relationship with God?
Yeah, for me, I think that, growing up that they're different, because when I started off, I felt like religion was kind of forced on me. Like it was something that my parents did. It was something that my parents, uncles and aunts did, or my parents' friends did. Like that was for them. And then I was just being brought to church because that's what we do, you know? And it's only until like I grew up and started kind of learning, you know, how having like this, this mindset and believing in God can have, a positive outcome on your life, that's when I started kind of looking at things differently, But I think that when you're younger, you have such an immature mind and you have such a naive perspective of the world that you don't understand that there's greater forces at play, really helping you get to where you need to get to. There's so many times in life that I literally be like, God, I don't know how I'm about to get home. I don't got no gas in this car. And then, someone, someone literally gives me gas money and stuff like that, unplanned, it's like right when you need it, you know what I mean?
Facts.
You know, like I said, constantly keeping us safe. And I think that's the part that kind of trips me up, because when I think about those particular moments in life, like there's no other way that I would have been able to get out of it, if there wasn't divine intervention, so.
Yeah. And that is, I 100% agree with you there. Like I can think about some experiences I've had in my teens and adulthood, and I'm just like, yo, how the heck did I manage to get out of that? Like knowing that if it were up to me, I would be 6 feet under, and just knowing and this feeling in that sense of presence of something that's watching over you and protecting you. It may sound crazy or corny, but there's really no other way to explain it. Like there have been some experiences that, I felt like could have gone sour, but they didn't. And it was purely out of my control. And I'm still here today. And I think that's a blessing for sure. But I would say, yeah, my early experience with religion was the same. And I think it's kind of one of the things we need to undo is, like, particularly me, like becoming a parent. That's one of the things I don't want to have. I don't want to feel like my child is forced into a religion. So kind of easing them into it. But also, I think one thing that would have helped is if my parents sat down and, kind of went through it with us as well, like kind of gave us a little bit more understanding and I can only
This is
say
what you
that
do. It's Sunday. This is what you do.
exactly. And even letting church start at home first. Like if this is something you're
Mm.
expecting me to enjoy and do when I could be home watching cartoons, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, help me build that relationship and foster it. But I understand that a lot of our parents were just thrown in as well, like kind of just tossed into that fire, you know, that religious fire. And it's just like, ah, you got to do this because I told you to do it. And if you don't do this, you know, you're going to go to hell. And it's
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. Like, no, I don't want to go to hell.
exactly.
That's all we knew. That's all we knew,
That's
man.
all you knew. You going to hell and just cookies and juice after church. So it's just like, all right, who wasn't going to stick around for the church cookies and church juice and
Oh
church
my
chicken?
gosh.
You know what I mean?
It's
Who
so
don't
naive, man. We were
who
so
don't like
naive.
church chicken? Exactly. So I think essentially trying to build, like, get a kid's Bible. You know what I mean? Read the stories little by little, especially the stories. Like I think that's one of the things that would get most children is the stories. Men being swallowed by whales, serpents and gardens, burning bushes, Goliaths, like arcs. Which child is not going to like that? So
Yeah.
if that's a key thing, like actually building it from home. And even if you're not the most well versed, it could be just, hey, going through a kid's version of the Bible. And that's another thing. Like I want to be well versed in it as well. So it's going to be easy to kind of pass on to my children.
Yeah.
If they choose to follow the Christian walk. Hey, dad or mom are good kind of paragons or examples of what this will do for you. So let's go into the next question. And how do you justify or explain God's existence? I'm not sure in your Christian walk if you've ever been hit with, well, you know, someone that may not believe, well, how, if God is real, why is this going on in Ukraine right now? If God is real, why do babies die? If God is real, you know, like, have you ever been hit with those questions and kind of put into that corner where you feel like, well, now I got to kind of explain something that can't really be explained?
Man, I swear, I will say I am. Whoo! If that happened to me, somebody approached me with that level of, you know, aggression, that would be really tough. That would be really tough. And even, you know, just to even backtrack a little bit, I feel like, you know, in the corporate world, you don't talk about religion, you know? So it's always kind of
like religion, sports, politics, or like the three no-nos.
well, some you can talk about sports, you can talk about the weather. But it just, I don't know, religion is always just been a big no-no. And for me, it's just all because of the fact I'm never sure what religion people are, even, like how much do they believe? Do they believe at all? Like that always kind of, makes it hard for me to like have those type of conversations. So when people kind of say something like, "Oh my gosh," or "Thank God," like at work, I'm like, do they really believe in God? I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, So
break out into a whole praise and worship session.
yeah. So the thing is that for me is like, so going back to the original thing, it makes it hard for me to deal with that because, and that on me that I don't I'm not doing the evangelistic effort, whether it's like bringing new people to God. I don't do it as much as I should, but it's like I'm always afraid to kind of get into those conversations. Like for me, having those type of conversations would be difficult because I feel like if someone is so adamantly against it, it makes me not want to get into that conversation I guess I'm just so much of like, okay, you have the right to believe what you want to believe. I have the right to believe what I want to believe, and I don't want to be the person. I don't want to come off like that pushy Christian. Like everybody's like, oh, that's what Christians do. All they do is that they force Christianity onto you, and that's all they want to talk about, and and it makes it hard to make genuine connections with people because like as soon as they find out that you're a Christian, I feel like sometimes they look at you differently, you know what I mean? So it could be like either that they're really messing with you or they're not, So, so it's like I don't know. So even though I in the corporate sense I don't do it, it's weird like in a public sense where technically we're free to be who we are, I still am hesitant to do it. Like I wear a cross on my neck and stuff like that, but if the conversation kind of starts up, I'm always trying to read that person. Like, can I really go there with this person?
No, I feel you. And for me, a part of being a Christian is simply being able to publicly express that you are. If someone were to ask you, hey, what do you believe in? It should be automatic. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died for our sins. And to me, like, one of the things I had help with my pastor understanding is that in a way, there's really not a 100% way to make sense of God if you think about it. Like, it makes sense to other people that believe. And I think that's why it's important to make sure you're with people of like mind. But if you're basically dealing with the world and non-believers, it's trying to make sense of God to them will never make sense because some don't believe that God even exists. So in a way, it's really just a waste of breath. There's nothing wrong with sharing the power and the grace and the mercy of God. And if you want that, I will share that with you, but I will never force it upon you. And the reason why I say it's hard to make sense of God as well, and I agree with that notion, is because God is of another level that we cannot truly understand. You know what I mean? We will never understand his ways. We just always know that his ways are his ways. And it's kind of like being a child, not knowing why your parents didn't allow you to get that third serving of ice cream, right? It's kind of like, you're like, why? Why they hate me? I don't understand why. And this may be the most rudimentary or simple analogy, but it really is. It's just kind of always being in that plane of never making sense of sense. Like, we're talking about parables of floods eliminating mankind, serpents that talk. We're talking about a virgin that managed to have a son. It's like these are the burning bushes that speak. These are things that essentially don't make sense. And it's just like it's only going to really build or foster with those that understand and willing to accept it. So if you're having a conversation about something to someone that is unwilling to accept it, you're going to be shooting in the dark every time.
Yeah.
So kind of avoiding these religious sparring is something that I like to avoid as much as possible. And my thing is, if you're going to kind of throw yourself into that or be thrown into it and participate, it's just being well equipped with scripture, I think, is going to help you in that sense. But even then, you beat somebody with scripture, they're not going to understand because they had to have some level of understanding or acceptance in order to really allow it to process. So it's just being willing to accept that, hey, you may not believe what I believe in, and that's fine. I may not believe in what you believe in, and that's fine, but I'm willing to deal with you for the sake of existence. And as a true Christian should, I'm willing to accept who you are. Just allow me to be who I am. Let's call it a day.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because, like I said, I'm always kind of more afraid to be open and transparent about my faith, but that's not the right way to live,
Yeah.
And I think one thing for me is just I don't want to be that pushy Christian, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to force religion on somebody.
Yeah.
But with me not kind of exuding, my faith every day, I might be robbing someone else of an opportunity to learn about him,
Facts. Great fact. That's a great point there. So speaking of the being in public or expressing it or justifying his existence, how important is it to you that you're already in a relationship, you're married, but how important to you was it that your partner shared the same religious beliefs as you did, or just had the same level of enthusiasm in religion as you? Was it important or was it not important?
Question. That's a really good question, man. Because I feel like I feel like more and more I'm hearing about these relationships where people of different religions kind of get together. And then I guess for me, just like I just didn't like I wouldn't know how that would work because I would not be able to do it. It was something that's very important for me. That we have the same denomination at least, or I say, well, let me say, like we both are Christians, I should say. But maybe the degree in which we embrace our Christianity varies, but I'm okay with that, but not if a completely different religion. I don't think that would have worked for me. I would not be able to do that.
Or even no religion at all.
Or even that's actually a really, really good point. Because even if like atheism or something, like I don't know if I'd be able to do that either.
I really wonder, how people of two religions, especially if you're speaking about, you know, Muslims and Catholics or Muslims and Christians, like how they're able to, even like 7 days and Christians as well, like how they're able to really build an understanding. Like for those that can, kudos to y'all, because I know some diehard Christians where it's like, yo, you have to be of the same church and whatnot. And just like anything else, people will have their standards and, you know, let them do them. But for those that can manage to blend the two and allow it to happen, credit, man. Like, because I see that being a challenge. So for me, yes, it's very important that my partner believed what I believed into. May not have the, I understand that not everyone's going to have the same level of enthusiasm, but at the same time, if we're able to grow with it, and make it a part of our kind of like with relationships, like I feel like you have to undergo daily maintenance or conditioning, and having things that you share can really build the relationship more if you have that kind of common ground and a foundation, I think, in Christ that will allow your relationship to persevere. And you know, to me, that was important, like having something that we believed in that was beyond us, because we're going to disappoint each other every time. You know what I mean? We're going to have moments where we exhibit frailty, and you know, we're going to have moments where we exhibit weakness, but having something bigger than ourselves that we would always fall back and rely on, it's kind of like, to me, building the ultimate level of trust, because it's just like, I entrust that you're going to follow these core principles and I'm going to make myself accountable to do the same. With this understanding, we're going to do our best by our relationship. So yeah, that way, that's another, I feel like, tool religion can play in building your relationship, having a said like mind. So I guess with that said, do you think religion ultimately has a purpose? Is that a purpose that you found recently, or do you think it really doesn't have a purpose?
No, it's not something I found recently, and it does have a purpose. I feel like the only thing is just that when we start, when God blesses us and puts us in a really good position and takes good care of us, sometimes we kind of disconnect a little bit and we kind of lose the same level of kind of vigor that we had, you know, when we first were praying to him for everything we needed, you know.
Sure.
Like, God, help me with this, help me take care of this, you know, bless this, watch over this. And then as you start getting your prayers answered, you know, maybe lose a little bit of that connection. But it's important to kind of always maintain, and because as life goes on, you know, more problems will, you know, emerge, and you need God's protection to ensure that you navigate those things safely, you know. And even if he's blessing you so that you may even bless others, you know, just because your prayers get answered and, he starts taking care of you, just understand that now need to become the beacon, the tool to bless others, you know.
And I would say about the prayer aspect as well. I'm gonna be transparent. I was one of those that whenever something came up, I prayed about it, and it was just like, oh God, let me please pass this test. I swear, I'll come in every Sunday. I swear I'll go to Bible study, and it was just like getting out of that cycle of making these false promises. Like, imagine God knows everything you're about to do before you do it. So you really think he doesn't know that, you passing this test, you're not going to make it on Sunday. You're going to suddenly find something to do.
Exactly.
So it was this idea of
trying
trying
to bargain with God.
Yeah, like trying to bargain with God and play with the power of prayer and your blessing. Like, that's a dangerous game, man. And another thing, realizing is God's going to answer your prayers in ways you did not expect. Sometimes it's not immediate. And sometimes it's not in the way that you wanted it to be. Like, sometimes failing that test will make you realize, like, hey, you know what? I need to get my behind up and study. But ultimately, yeah, I agree. Religion does serve a purpose. It's pretty much, it can be used as a tool of discipline and of guidance. Answers to the unknown, explanations to the unknown. You know what I mean? Like, we come into this world with things around us, with never really knowing how they came to be. And you just go to some parts of the world and you see like the natural, beautiful landscapes. You're like, yo, no man could have created this. And it's just like having those moments of just, I don't know, just the sense of divinity, or the sense that there's this reaching hand or something over you is just unexplainable. really, and definitely worthy of recognition in
Yeah,
that sense.
comforting as well.
Facts. So let's kind of get into this last question. And I think this is something, not really a trick question, but do you believe that religion is for everyone? Do you
Mm.
think that, religion chooses the person or the person chooses religion? And we'll make this our final talking point.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Um, you know, hmm, I I mean, I would have to say I believe it is for everyone because in my religion, God is for all of us. You know what I mean? So because of my faith and because of my faith, I believe that, I believe in God and God is for all of us. So then it must be for everyone, right? Um, but even in my faith, even if you're not a believer of him, he still, will protect you and watch over you. So, um, yeah, so I don't know. I feel like it's such a difficult question to ask, to answer, I should say, because, even if you have other faiths, you believe in other things, like in my religion, God will still look after you and watch over you and protect you. So, so thus, it is for you. It is for everyone, Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, my take on this is that I don't think religion is for everyone. I think,
Mm,
and that's because, I'm not saying that there isn't a home for you, but that's because we have the power of free will. And that means you can choose to not be a part of any home and live your life that way and basically find out where you end up. So, and if we choose to not accept it, then yes, in a way, absolutely, religion is not for everyone, as we will have some that will choose not to follow, choose not to fellowship, choose not to build a home, choose not to become of something, and has lived their lives on earth until they perish. And on the other end, you have those that will choose, that will follow a religion, subscribe to a doctrine, fulfill the practices, and fulfill a position in their church. And that's all well. I mean, we even see it in the Bible, Adam and Eve, eating from the fruit, eating of the
mhm,
fruit. We have, Judas that even chose to betray Jesus. So there's always a choice. So it's really the power of free will is up to you and to make that decision on what you want to believe in and how you want to end up. And I
mhm,
think there was like one uh Albert Camus, he said he'd rather believe and find out that there is not a hell. Well, he'd rather believe and find out that heaven and hell does not exist than to not believe and find out that it does. So it's kind of like one of the things I always say as well is like, it's kind of like an insurance policy as well. Real talk, because it's just like at any moment, anything could happen. And I would be vain to think that I'm going to live on earth and have a moment to repent, before that time comes. Any of us could go today, tomorrow within seconds, right? So it's
mhm,
kind of like, apart from it as well, not because I felt like it helped me develop as a person as well as helping me continuously grow as a person, but also having that reassurance that if there is, in fact, you know, the holy gates, I want to make sure I get there
mhm,
because I don't want to find out what is below that. You know what I mean? I don't want to wind up in purgatory and below. Like I would want to become one with God and one with his believers and for eternity. That's the idea and that's what's written for eternity. So that means there's no weekend and you wake up and you try again.
Oh
No,
my
that's
God. Yeah, no end to that.
there is a fixed position. So, yes, if that is the case, sign me up for the Holy Gates, please. Pass go, collect $200 and make your way. So, but ultimately, it's a choice. And with that said, the choice is also yours. Listen to this discussion, form your own thoughts, form your own opinions, but more importantly, form a good understanding. And we hope this helps you on your spiritual journey. Feel free to tune in to the pod. And also check us out on Instagram at JJC Pod or Jerk Jollof Collar Pod on Instagram and on Facebook. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Stay tuned for the outro coming right up to learn additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, share, follow, and or subscribe. And if you like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on your preferred streaming platform of choice. Hope to see you all again next week. I think these next 2 episodes will be on my last 2 currently during this season. So I will hear from you all again, probably after episode 54 in season 7, as I have a couple things that I need to square out right away here on my end. But apart from that, it was a pleasure hosting everyone. And feel free to hit me up on Instagram at G_ransom, RANSOME, to find out what I'll be getting into next. And until I see you guys again on season 7. Until then, be safe, be blessed, find God. He loves you. And if you don't know that, now you know. Peace.
Peace.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.